Hey guys, it's Melissa Moore. Thanks for joining me for Faith, Hope, Love, where we grow together in our faith, increase in hope, and learn how to better love God and love other people. Today we are in our What's Your Type Enneagram series for a talk with a Type 9. I'm here today with Marlena Graves, and she is the author of 40 Days on Being a 9. Marlena, thank you so much for joining me. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and answering our obvious question, what's your type?
Oh, yes. I'm a nine with a wing eight, I believe. I have a little bit of a one, but let's see. It's always so hard. I think introducing myself depends on what season I am in my life. So I'm going to start where I'm at right now. So I'm in school for a PhD at Bowling Green State University in Bowling Green, Ohio. It's a state research school. And I'm studying American culture. Within that is white evangelical Christianity and inequality, race, immigration, and gender roles, and where women fit in. But in the past, I've been on staff at churches, director of discipleship, minister of pastoral care, pastoral associate, and also I've worked at nonprofits. So those have been different seasons of my life, but what they all share in common, I would think, has to do with my nine wing eight with an eight wing, is that I care about putting what we say we believe into action. So like spiritual formation and justice are usually usually bifurcated and torn apart, but really the word righteousness and justice are the same one in scripture with the same origins. So you could use justice or righteousness when you read those, like the just person, which is also the righteous person, does X, Y, and Z. So my schooling right now is just blending spiritual formation and that together. And I just think God's put me in different seasons of my life, and I've been wanting to go to school for 10 years, but I have three daughters, and my two youngest were born within the last 10 years, and I just cannot, when they're babies and toddlers, and I'm just so exhausted that I couldn't do that. Even though I worked a little bit, my mind was gone. So the Lord gave me an opportunity to do that now. And my husband and I, my husband's a professor. He's a philosophy professor. We live just outside of Toledo, Ohio. So that's where we're at. And I write books on the side. So
I love that so much. I really resonate with you on being a mom. I can definitely connect on that. And I love how you kind of mentioned being a 9 wing 8 and just the passion you have for justice. I think that is just such a beautiful explanation of your type and really just living in your strengths. I love that for you. But I really kind of want to dive in now into a little bit more of your story in learning about the Enneagram. What has been your experience? Obviously, you know that you're a type 9. Did you know that right away? Did you mistype? What's been your experience?
yeah, I had no idea that I was a nine. So I learned about it actually, I used to write for Christianity Today regularly in a blog called Hermeneutics. They changed it to CT Women, and I'm not sure, it kind of went through different evolutions. But so I was at a conference with one of my friends, actually one of the editors of Hermeneutics, Caitlin Beatty, and another person that people might know, Sharon Miller. And we were all in the same hotel room, and they're like, "Oh, what Enneagram number are you?" And I had heard some talk. We also had like a Facebook page about the Enneagram. I'm like, "What's the Enneagram?" So that was like probably 2010 or 11. And so I was like, I have no idea, because I can see this in me. And I'm sure other people kind of do that. And it's funny because like I've had people like tweet at me on Twitter, like several people, or like write me and like an email through my site and asked me if I was a four. I was like, based on the books that I've written, my first book, I'm like, oh, really? I was like, I really don't think I'm a four. Maybe I have some four, tendencies, maybe, So it was real funny. I was like, I just don't know what I am. And I think a lot of people say that's kind of a nine. Like you can figure other people out, but it's hard for you to be as knowing who you are as a nine. In a nine, they say it's at the top of the Enneagram, so you kind of integrate a lot of everything. But it took me what really helped me figure out that I was a nine was a part of the reason was, they say the nines unhealth is sloth, like that could we equate sloth as laziness. Um, but it's not necessarily laziness because I'm like, well, that doesn't apply to me. I'm being honest. Um, but like lack of full engagement with life, or especially with the conflict. I'm like, I really, I think that was. I look back at my life. I'm like, oh yeah, there's so many places where I just really sacrificed myself and my health on behalf of other people because I didn't want to you bother them, or I thought it'd be more conflict if I said, "Listen, what you're doing is really rude. Let's be honest, you're being a jerk." Because I don't do that, right? But it led to a lot of pain and like toxicity within me because I was holding it all in. So I finally figured out, yeah, I'm a nine. And then I figured out, the eight wing, which Suzanne Stabile, she's like the Enneagram guru. I'm not a guru. I don't teach on the Enneagram like at different places, like at conferences. But I know enough about like a nine and really know about a nine and know about the Enneagram to say she's like the Enneagram 9-8 is like one of the most conflicted personalities because you want to make peace, but when you see injustice or like people being picked on, like if I see people being picked on, I'm like, oh my word, I am gonna stand up for you. So like I walk around conflicted. I'm like, yep, I'm definitely a 9 W8 wing 8.
I also have a friend that's a 9 wing 8, and it's been really interesting to see kind of the wrestling internally, where the 8 is more of that like brash, very willing to tell you like it is, whereas the 9 is very much more, I guess, gentle and desiring for peace. And so that combination is actually really cool, and it's neat to see that kind of come out in your life too, where you're able to speak truth in love and speak it in a way that's receptive for other people. I think that is a long lost gift in our society, to be able to speak truth in love. And it's cool to see you doing that. And that obviously comes out in your book as well. I want to kind of jump in a little bit more into how the Enneagram works, how you've seen it come out in your day-to-day life. Obviously, we've come through this major pandemic and we've kind of seen a lot of stressful situations. So how have you seen your type 9 personality come through in seasons of stress, seasons of growth, both pre and post COVID? How have you seen that come out in your life personally?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Well, I'm going to talk about the strengths first. Just one strength. In COVID, I guess I'm going to give you one kind of anecdote, but related to something else. So, right, like as COVID was happening, I lost my last job due to financial reasons. They had to make cuts. Um, and I'm like, oh my word, what am I going to do? Like, this is stressful. My family needs money. And then COVID hit. I'm like, I can't get a job because there's no job to go to. And, the Lord really worked it out because I had gotten the contract to write the 40 days as a nine, 40 days on being a nine, I'm sorry, Enneagram daily reflections. And so during COVID, like some people are like, I'm just tired. I can't do anything. I'm like, I completely understand that because well, in our case, we live, in Northwest Ohio. It's cold, like in February, you can't really get out. And then can no longer go to the Y to work out or anything. So our girls were like, stir crazy. So, we started listening to Audible and Lord of the Rings and different things with them and Harry Potter. But as for me, I just worked every single day. Like I got to write this book. So I had, my husband was helpful, right? Because he was at home too. I have to say, let me say this too, because I have support. I'm not a single mother, and my husband was able to work from home. I was able to do this. So obviously, I have a privilege that other people do not have. So as a 9-8, I don't know. I'm like, okay, I got to get this done. I see what I got to get done, get it done. So I'm like, every single day, I was just in a rhythm, writing. I'm like, okay, yeah, I have plenty of time to get this book done because I have nowhere to report except for home. And so I think that's a strength of an Enneagram 9-8 because sometimes like Enneagram 9s are seen like, yes, we are laid back and we do we don't want to hurt people's feelings, and sometimes that's why we avoid conflict. But then the other part is like we can get stuff done. Um, uh, and so, I mean, if we're in a bad place, maybe we want to nap or do something else or escape, but we can get things done. And so I think that was a strength of like, okay, I need to get this done. And also another strength is saying, people, don't be out of your minds with this pandemic. I'd have definite opinions about the pandemic. I'm not going to communicate them on this broadcast because I don't want to alienate anyone that might see. I'm a peacemaker. I don't want to alienate someone that might think differently. But I have opinions about the pandemic, and I was able to speak them. And also from knowledge of church history and history before. So I spoke my opinions about the pandemic to even people that disagree with me. I think in a loving way, as you said about your friend and nines, you can usually say things that are hard. I wrote about this in the book. It's like, you have a spoonful of sugar and you make the medicine go down as nines. So I think that's a strength. Now, to flip the flip side of that, my definite weakness is, and I also talked about this in the book too, is that like I let things go, because I think in my mind, the scriptures, bear with one another, bear each other's burdens, um, like just let things go because you don't want to be nitpicking or constantly going at people. In this case, it would have been my family during the pandemic because I didn't really see other people. Problem with a nine is that I think we let it go too much and then we explode like a volcanic eruption. Instead of saying, I've learned to say, this is kind of blunt, but I say to my daughters, knock it off. Okay. Just knock it off. I'm like, I'm telling you, mommy's going to have to go in a timeout because I'm getting upset, or like, I need to go in timeout. So please leave my room or whatever, but I just try to explain to my daughters, like, parents get upset too. We get frustrated. We do things wrong. We have to ask for forgiveness. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Because I have had, during the pandemic, I had to ask a few times, like, listen, I lost my temper. I'm so sorry. Like, will you please forgive me? And I have to ask God to forgive me. I'm not trying to say like I'm a saint or anything. My family knows that I'm not. So my point is that I think instead of dealing with the conflict head on, like we let it build up and then we can explode. There's two things, and I'll finish with this. Thank you so much, Melissa. Nines. So most nines would let that go, or when we're not in our, when we're kind of weak, we just let it go because we don't want to stir the pot. We don't want to cause problems. So people think, yeah, we are easygoing, but inside we might be fuming. It's like I can think of like a little fireplace. The fire's inside of me, but I push it down to avoid conflict. In my weak, when I'm not in ill health, I mean. And so that's one thing. We suppress what we really feel in order to maintain peace, but that does not maintain peace inside of us. And the second thing is at nines, like sometimes we wait too long to act. For example, I'll just give like if a nine's in a bad relationship or in a healthy relationship, this was me when I was like, 21 or before I met my husband, like, I'm sorry, like 19 years old. And I just stayed with someone that was not good for me at all because I didn't want to hurt his feelings and several other things. I even got engaged with him because I didn't want to hurt his feelings. And I'm like, finally, I'm like, oh my gosh, I cannot marry this person. Nice person, cannot marry you. 19 years old, right? I was engaged. Yeah, broke that up. But it took me so long. And I even tried to, like several times, I tried to break up. I'm like, I said, no, I don't think we're right together. And he would like, not meanly, but now I know the term for it. It's gaslighting. Oh, you're just having cold feet or whatever. No, I'm like, no, this has lasted for like a year and a half. I felt like I was pushed to my limit. And that's what I want to avoid as nines, so that we don't go to either extreme, like never saying anything or exploding. We as nines have to say, and it's uncomfortable for us. Like, I don't like that. That makes me upset. No, I do not want to go to a seafood restaurant because I don't like seafood. Anywhere else is fine, So, anyways, that also had to do with COVID pandemic, exploding at my family members because I just held on too long sometimes, but I'm getting better.
Thank you so much for being willing just to be honest, and obviously not just sharing the positives, but some of the negatives of your type too. And I think there's so much beauty in being able to see someone that's come through a lot and have been able to grow and advocate for themselves. I think that's something that a lot of nines really struggle with, especially when they're in an abusive or manipulative relationship. And I know a lot as women too, in general, we can sometimes feel like we have to kind of tone ourselves down. And I know nines feel that even more so than every other type. So I appreciate you sharing what it looks like to live in a healthy way and to be able to come out of that stress point and grow. I love that so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. I want to kind of move into a positive space here. What are some maybe spiritual practices that you would suggest for someone that's looking to grow as a nine? Obviously, we want to look at how to become healthy and whole. What does that look like for you as a type 9?
I think the hardest thing for us, as you said, is like where we can grow is like making big decisions, and I do talk to people. Like, I'm a spiritual director. I talk to my husband, talk to my friends. I mean, but of course people say, or, big decisions, like obviously in the end, it's between you and God, and you have to make the decision, because not making a decision is a decision. So I will be staying where I'm at right now in that comfortable, good place, not toxic, nothing bad with it, if I don't make a decision. If I do make this decision, I'm going to go through discomfort. And nines love comfort, right? We like our comfort. I'm going to go through discomfort, and I don't know what the outcome will be. I mean, that's walking by faith. True. You don't know what the outcome. We walk by faith, not by sight. So that's things that nine have to work on. I think that was your question, like where we have to grow. Yeah. So I think making decisions, we can drag our feet too long because of, the risk of conflict and seeing both sides of it, or not just both sides. There could be like 5 sides of it, and that's the strength and weakness of nines. Like in conflict, I can give it to someone else. Like even if in like a political thing or like theology, I'm like, well, they do have a point about that. I mean, I can see why they say that, and that's right. Where some people are like, you're just so wrong. You're just wrong. And I'm like, no, they're not. You just aren't being fair. Let's give that other person credit. And that's a problem. I'm like, so sometimes it paralyzes me. I don't want to speak for other nines, but it paralyzes me. And I think what I've read about nines, it does. So you don't make a decision, or you don't say, you know what? I've gotten the evidence that I know, I've done what I can do, and I've studied, researched, talked to people, and I still think that X, Y, Z are wrong, or that this is a better path. Like I shouldn't say I'm good at now. I'm getting better at that now. And so nines, we can just fade into the, be wallflowers or fade into the background because we don't want to cause conflict. And so growing into making decisions, not like I talked earlier, not lagging, like not staying in a bad situation longer than we should because we don't want to hurt people's feelings, or not speaking up for ourselves because we don't want to hurt people's feelings. And as you mentioned, Melissa, I would say growing into those leadership positions, like, and maybe it's because I'm a 9/8, like when I'm around a conference table, or whether it be in the church or somewhere else, at a meeting or whatever, I don't have any problem about saying what I think. That's probably the 8. Like, I'm like, no, I mean, why don't we try this? Or don't you think this is a better idea? I think I probably say it more gently, but I'm like, what about this? But I think, I mean, you just nailed it. When it comes to advocating for ourselves, that's where we can grow. Because I think we sell ourselves short, but we don't sell other people short.
I love that so much. I think that's actually something all the types would benefit from, spending time with people that we disagree with. I think the nines probably do it the best when they're healthy. And I think they actually have a lot to teach the rest of us about how to live in a state of conflict and be with people that do not agree with us. I think that's something that our world desperately needs right now, is people that can kind of guide that conversation so that we can come to a healthy resolution rather than just continuing to be divided. So I love that so much. And I agree, nines are great at that. I also want to talk about faith, hope, and love. Obviously the show is called Faith, Hope, Love. How, as a 9, have you grown in those 3 things?
for me, growing spiritually, I would always be able to. I think I'm ecumenical. Like, um, I can see what the Roman Catholics, what the Eastern Orthodox, what Baptists, Presbyterians, I think, charismatics, just go down the line, the good things, maybe that's the one wing, right? But the good things that all the different denominations bring into the way that we complete the, no, I guess we can't completely complete the picture of God, but I think every denomination has a strength and they focus on some kind of good thing about God that maybe the other ones do not see or they don't highlight. And so I think that's grown because I'm like, some people are like, wow, you better not read anything from them because, dear God, you're going to go astray, or they're, and of course, I'm not saying embrace things that are just obviously counter to church teaching throughout the ages. I believe Jesus is God, that he rose from the dead bodily, the things that are the central tenets of the faith, okay? But there's a lot of things that people make, they major on the minors that are not central tenets of Christianity. And of course, maybe someone listening to this podcast or someone who's sees me on Twitter might disagree about what those central things are or what majoring on the minors are. Um, but my point is that I think I've been able to just grow so much because, like, I'm like, oh my word, like there's so much treasure, like in the Eastern Orthodox Church, spiritual formation. Roman Catholics, I mean, anything in Protestantism, we call it spiritual disciplines or growing. Any of that comes from the Roman Catholics and the Eastern Orthodox. And if you deny it, you just don't know church history. So, like, okay. And so I've been able to grow, really grow. And some people might think that's a weakness that I'm like light on whatever. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm going to take goodness from whatever denomination, whatever person, man, woman. So we're all part of the body of Christ.
I totally agree. I think there's so much beauty when it comes to living as the body of Christ. And I love that you as a nine brought up that passage. I feel like that's a very nine thing to say. I just think that's so beautiful when we look at the church as being built of a bunch of different individuals, right? We're all different, but we're supposed to be united. And I think the thing that's cool about the nine is they're able to not only see the gifts of each individual and help to put them together, but also see the beauty that's in different denominations within the church and to be able to inspire unity there as well in the greater church body. I think that's so, so crucial. I think our church desperately needs that right now, is a sense of unity, a sense of connectedness, a sense of agreeing on some really key topics. And I love that nines really can see that really well. I think that's just beautiful. Obviously, you've written a book as well to the type nines. What does your book bring to the nines? What can they learn from you through reading your book?
Jesus tells us in Matthew 8, I believe, you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free, but that he's the truth. He's talking about that right before the John 8:32. I'm sorry. And then, so I start out the book saying, you need to tell the truth or find out the truth about yourself. Like, face the good, the bad, and the ugly as a nine. Because, like, nines could be like, nope, I'm just going to hide from conflict. And the conflict could be the stuff that we don't like about ourselves, right? I'm just going to leave that over there and not address it. And if I close my eyes, like little kids that are putting their hands in front of their face, they don't see you, but you see them, right? Like, so like, I'm just going to leave that there, not address it. And, if I pretend it's not there, or if I don't acknowledge it, then it won't cause conflict within me as a nine. No, they tell you. And so I am like, the church, nines, everyone should be like AA, go through the 12 steps and tell the truth. Who have you hurt? What have you done? Like all the sinful or bad postures or behaviors that you have. Be honest about that. Like, what part of sloth as a nine are you? If you're like, yeah, I'm physically lazy, hallelujah, you admitted the truth. Now we can go forward, or maybe how do you show lack of love as a nine? Because that has to do with sloth, or live half-heartedly. That's how I wrote the book. And I really do believe that you can find healing by, again, I'll just finish. What's not good or what's not Christ-like, what's, destructive in us, toxic, by admitting that. But that's not who we are, right? People say you're not the worst thing you've ever done. And then, okay, so those are the horrible things. And then, okay, here's some things I need to work on. Like, I used to be so embarrassed to say, like, yes, I exploded at my family because I held it in too long, because it makes me look bad. But it's true. Like, why lie? Because I'll only be set free if I tell the truth. And then, like I said earlier, the things that we are good at. And so I tried to do that in the book. Like, okay, here's not good, and you have to actually decide for yourself, or talk to other people if you don't know. Here's the things you have to work on. Okay, talk to trusted other people that aren't just going to put you down and have a vendetta against you. And then ask people, if you don't know, ask your friends. And I've done that before. What do you think I'm good at?
I absolutely love that. I think that every single type really needs to go through that transformation process. And I love that your book really helps to guide them on that journey. It's very practical. The chapters are really short. So if you're a 9 or you know a 9, it's a great book. Definitely pick up a copy. Marlena, before we close out, would you maybe leave us with a tip for a type 9 as well as a tip for someone who loves a 9?
So, final tip for the 9. I would like 9s to do a hard thing. For me, that was taking the GRE to get into the PhD program, because I'm like, I haven't had math since I was 18 years old because I clept out of it in college. Do a hard thing. And if you need someone to encourage you to do, I don't know what that is. It might be telling someone that you love them or are attracted to them, or it might be telling someone you love that you are upset with them. I don't know what the hard thing is for you, but do one hard thing, because not doing it is keeping you from moving forward. And the last thing for people that love 9s, I would say, is that just pay attention to them. Like you were, Melissa, like your friend, had a hard conversation with you, which is amazing. I can't believe she said, you know what, you interrupt me. And you were like very humble about it. I'm sorry. But pay attention to 9s and don't underestimate. We can surprise you with how we are as leaders and stuff, and we're often underestimated. And so please encourage 9s, listen to them, because you'll be richer for it.
I totally agree. I think every other type has a lot that they can learn from the type 9. And I think it's important for us to stop and slow down and just listen to 9s, give them the space to share what they've learned. And I just think that's something that's so beautiful. I appreciate you touching on that. I think that is so, so crucial for those of us that are not 9s to be able to love our 9s well. And again, we need them. We need to learn from them. And they're the ones I think that really can guide us forward in our society, in creating a more peaceful and unified society. We need 9s. So Marlena, thank you so much again for joining me. Before we close out, can you share how we can follow you as far as social media, website, and where can we purchase your book?
Thank you. It's been such a joy to be with you, and I mean that. Yeah, you can follow me at Marlena Graves on Twitter, and I think it's like at Marlena.Graves on Instagram. I'm not really good at Instagram like some people are, but I am there now. And you could purchase my book, online anywhere. Go to InterVarsity Press or Heart and Mind Books and buy it from an independent bookseller. 40 Days as a 9.
Marlena, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. And for everyone that is watching or listening, thanks for joining us for What's Your Type Enneagram series. Join me back here next week for a special extended episode with Suzanne Stabile. We're going to talk about her latest book, Journey Toward Wholeness. It's going to be incredible. You don't want to miss it. I'll see you right back here next week.